Even in a job market where it is tight, still a tendency for leadership and companies to have retention issue. A lot of it is, why are employees leaving? So let's talk about that.
Do they even want that job?
Right. We talked about that last time.
I can't tell you how many times people would say to me, well, actually, no, I don't want that job, Marci. But I'm also afraid to say that I don't want that job. The biggest gap is, how about the conversation? How about the in-depth conversation that you're having with your talent?
He has been in the same position for 20 years, 20 plus years. He's never had a desire to be the CEO of LaToya or any kind of, higher level leadership role there. He just wants to do a really good job.
There were things that I wish I would have done differently.
The title doesn't mean everything. You can't put the title under your pillow at night. Your value, your worth, your purpose, your energy, the feelings you get when you do that job.
There's a lot in the middle and how that impacts the organization. And so we want to talk more about.
Welcome to the HR Misfits, the podcast about leadership decisions most organizations get wrong, told from the HR seat that actually sees the fallout. We're business-minded, human-centered, and just bold enough to challenge the people systems that no longer work, where polished playbooks end and real leadership begins. We're the HR leaders who've been in the room when things get messy, political, or uncomfortable, leading with heart, grit, and a little bit of sass. If you believe HR should be a catalyst, not corporate theater, and leadership should actually work for humans, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Hi, Misfit fans. We're back with another episode of the HR Misfits. We're super excited to keep the party going. We're in the heart of the summer. The struggle is real. It is
so hot
everywhere.
It's terrible.
We are represented with business mullets, summer business mullets today as well. Just to make sure we look acceptable for the episode. But we really have so many things we still want to talk about. So we're going to kick off this episode and talk about what will be like a little bit of a series. It kind of builds on what we talk about, but talking about retention and the crisis that it is, even in a job market where it is tight and there appears to be a limited amount of opportunities, there's still a tendency for leadership and companies to have retention issue, but it's always centered on the same thing. A lot of it is, why are employees leaving? So let's talk about that. First, we're going to talk about the two key players that we typically see with the retention crisis: high performers, high potential. Might sound like they're the same, not the same thing. So we're going to unpack that a little bit and talk about this kind of retention crisis and how you end up in this trap. So I'm going to start by maybe just unpacking the two different things. So you say, okay, high performer and high potential tend to get used interchangeably, not the same thing.
Right.
First, a high performer, that is about driving results, delivering on what you said you were going to do. This is your job. You're doing an, above average, consistently performing at your job. High potential is about capacity and future kind of capabilities. Can you develop broader than what you're doing now? The question some people say is do you have to have one to have the other? I think it's a great question. I'm going to throw that out.
Let's dig in.
The misfit. They're not the same, but do you have to have one without the other? What do you ladies, jump in here? Tell me what you think. High performer, high potential. Is it the same, different? How you see it?
Yeah. Marci, I'll kick it off. I have several thoughts kind of popping through my mind here. One, and I know we'll kind of dig into this, is this reminds me of an episode a couple of weeks or months back, probably a couple of months by now, where we talked about throwing out all the frameworks and how we as leaders identify high potentials and high performers. We've used all kinds of tools over the last 30 to 50 years to do that. And one of those tools is called the 9-box. And we've all said we're anti-framework a little bit, right? So, I mean, not all frameworks, but like, we don't want to be putting people in boxes and then kind of nobody ever understanding where they go from there. So, but for this purpose today, I think that there's probably some value in talking about the types of tools we've used to even identify what's a high potential and a high performer. And we'll get to that. But going back to your question, LaToya, certainly a difference between high potentials and high performers. I think that and you really said it, a high performer is someone who is just consistently just really knocking it out of the park in the role that they are in. So they're a really good, forgive this like term, but they're a really good widget maker, whatever that widget is, right? They're really,
They're
really
good at
great.
doing the thing that we hired them to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're really good at it. And so they're just a solid, reliable performer, and we need those in our businesses all day long, right? And then we've got our high potentials, which are people that are doing that, or are probably doing that, but we see things in them that could make them really strong leaders. Generally, that's a people leader, but it also could just be a practice or an expert or a higher level kind of performer in their function that's not a people leader, but they really have potential to do so much more than what they're doing right now. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to need support from the company to get there, or development, or opportunities, training, etc. But they absolutely have the essential, what I'll say, are qualities to become a they're a high potential or high potential employee in your workforce. So I do think there's a big difference there. I was telling the girls right before we started that I read a stat that I thought pretty interesting, and I'm just going to read it here, and then we can kind of unpack this a little further. Which was this: the Gartner research found that only 15% of our high performers are also high potentials. So if you think about that, that means that 85% of today's top performers lack the critical attributes, essential qualities, whatever those are in your business, to be successful in future roles in their companies. That is a staggering stat. I thought that was something we could kind of unpack here today too. So, Marci, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I've been a part of many meetings where the two get used interchangeably, which, used to, from an HR perspective, used to make me climb walls. But I think there's assumptions that go into those two categories. People think, oh, well, they're a high performer, which means they have high potential, right? They perform very well at job X, which means they absolutely should perform very well at job Y. If job Y is a people leadership role that is overseeing multiple layers, so say you have somebody who's, they're crushing it in their job. They're a senior manager, they, are a very strong individual contributor. There's a director opening, and that director opening not only becomes a very heavy strategy leader, but there's multiple layers of people underneath that where the potential needs to be there, that now not only are they an individual contributor, they have to then turn around and be a coach and really get work done through others and inspire a team. And so those conversations used to be eye-opening when you would have a leader in the room and be like, oh, well, they're crushing it. Of course they should be that, director. So I said, so hold on. If that director role is vacant tomorrow, you literally can sit there and say, and pass the test to say that that individual is absolutely ready for that job. You've assessed them accordingly that they're ready for that job. Oh, and P.S., do they even want that job?
Right. We talked about that last time.
Have they said, and I know we talked about this last time, right? Is like, have they said, yeah, actually, I do want to be a people leader. I do want to be a director. I do want to increase my scope of responsibility. And I'm sure the two of you have had these conversations, as we do, right? In human resources, we have these conversations, development conversations all the time. I can't tell you how many times people would say to me, well, actually, no, I don't want that job, Marci, but I'm also afraid to say that I don't want that job, because then I won't be tagged as someone who is still a high performer in the organization. So that's where I see these conversations can go awry real quick if we're not clear. LaToya, to your point, like how you beautifully set it up with the definitions of, let's get clear around what we are actually measuring and saying. And that's where I see things can get dicey.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, thinking about the stat that you share, Amy, like I see some part of that is actually a good indicator, because if I tie that to what Marci said, if it was the reverse and you had 85% of your population that is high potential, it's probably not real.
Right.
Or big concern, because high potentials tend to be kind of jack of all trade, master of none or few, which is could be positive or not. You have to, because again, if you're thinking about those people that are going to, kind of, you're going to prioritize, accelerate them through the organization on the path to leadership. You usually are not spending a whole lot of time in certain places. Now,
Mm.
Marci and I were talking about this. We have been in places where maybe that acceleration goes a little bit too fast,
Way
too
too
often. And then he's like,
Yeah.
I've been here for 15 minutes. And you're like, next. And so it's like, okay, I've learned
Right.
absolutely nothing
I'm
but the
ready.
people that I work with name. And so I don't know that I'm really ready for the next role, but okay, I'll keep the party going.
Right.
So I think we also make that trap. But with high potentials, you tend to that's kind of behind the action. It's like there's this tendency to like say, like, well, we got to make sure we're moving them around,
Yes.
getting them in front of different things,
Yes.
using them, getting them in all the right places to prepare them for what we believe is that kind of like destination role at the
Right.
top.
Mhm.
Right.
If you do that with the majority of your organization, you will have zero continuity.
Yes.
And that will be a disruptor. You cannot have that. You do need
Yep.
more steadiness in the organization.
Right.
And you need a balance of people that can perform, do it well in the jobs that they have for a sustained period of time to drive continuity. So on one hand, it's like, it's okay to have strong performers. Your high potential is going to be probably in the 15 to 20%
I was just
range.
gonna
If
say
you
that.
start going to the other side,
Yes.
you might want to question, like, do you even have the right balance? And I also know that
Yeah.
there are leaders, like, and I think this is kind of where we'll go into, is like, it could be a trap on both sides, because if you let's just say you do all the things, you could say, hey, I want to go after all of the superstars.
Mhm.
And when you are like, I'm doing the right thing as a leader, I'm going after the best and the brightest talent in the organization, I'm gonna put them all on my team.
Right.
Yep.
Those, I've seen this as an HR leader, these are teams that have high turnover. That's not good for the team or whatever they're supporting or working on, because there's no continuity. So there's a backlash in that. What also happens in that is that you tend to overburden the people that are not always moving around,
Bingo.
because
Oh
they
my
get
That's right.
the residual of everything that just keeps coming,
Of course.
when, superstar Shelly has to go to her next assignment. It's like, back to Steady Eddie, because I've taken on everything, and I do hate Steady Eddie, but I had to use it.
Yeah, we got it. It has to be done. Has to be done.
It's okay. It
I
was
love
suitable.
Superstar Shelly though.
Yeah, it was. It was suitable for that. You're spot on, because
It was.
again, and everything you're saying too is just the underlying piece there is like so many assumptions being made versus clearly knowing your talent, clearly having those dialogues, clearly understanding how to best move talent, how to best develop talent, how to best assess talent. And there's so many different tools and resources, and I know we've all used them. But the biggest thing that I see, the biggest gap, is you have a leader sit down and they're using all these tools. But I'm like, but how about the conversation? How about the in-depth
Yeah.
conversation that you're having with your talent to truly understand? So if I have LaToya in my organization and she's crushing it, but LaToya loves what she does. She feels good, she feels energized, she likes what she's doing, and it gives her the balance that she needs. Shame on me as her leader then if I'm going to make assumptions and say, "Oh, well, LaToya are like, oh, she's probably going to be bored soon. Oh my gosh, I have to give her more work. I have to expand her. I have to stretch her. And this role is definitely going to be right for her because she's high potential."
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I didn't even have the conversation with LaToya. And then my bias creeps in that, like, in order for LaToya to be successful, by my definition, she should be in this job. Meanwhile, LaToya's like, what, I'm fulfilled. Like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
So that's where I see this can go off the rails. And to your point, LaToya, like, it does nothing to help the organization at all. And that assumption that people have to move and they have to, but my question is always like, but what is underneath that? What is driving that need to move someone, every 2 years? If they're crushing it and they're doing your organization a service, oh, and PS, they're super happy and energized. And
I think too, in so many companies, without I think intending to do this, but just letting it happen, is we focus so much on the high potentials.
you do.
When we have, an all hands meeting where we're recognizing kind of top performers, are they I'm going to say it, the steady eddies that we really absolutely need in our companies, or
Yeah.
are they the people that are out here that have, worked on a project for 6 months and killed it, which by the way, we need those too. We need
Yes,
those people.
we do.
But if we're only highlighting and kind of shining a bright light and clapping and, celebrating our high potentials, we are unfortunately not, I think, taking care of the biggest piece of our workforce, which is high performers that don't necessarily end up being high potentials, which is okay.
Yes.
I've also seen this situation where, not only do we think that we've got, a great talent in superstar Shelly because she's so good at what she does, but then we say, you know what, we've got a need right now, right? So we need somebody to step into this leader role. You're great. Will you do it? And it's so hard for that person to say no because they want to be, even if they don't want the role.
Yes.
I've even seen it where they say, I didn't really want to take that leadership on, but I'm a team player and I'm going to do whatever you need me to do. Right. And so we say, oh, thanks so much. That attaboy, right? Thanks so much for being willing to take one for the team and take on this responsibility. And then, oh, by the way, when they don't excel at it, all of a sudden the view we have of them quietly starts to shift. And now we're like, oh, wait a minute, but are they as good as we thought they were? Well, yeah, if you left them in the role where they were excelling, they'd be great. But now you got them supervising a team of 20 people that they never asked for. They just agreed to do it because they wanted to be a team player. And now they're not doing so hot because that wasn't even their bag to begin with.
Exactly.
Right?
It's so
And then
true.
you start hearing things like, oh, Shelly's not showing up the way she used to.
Man.
You got 17 jobs. Like, I mean, you literally doing everybody's job on the team, and you're like, that's short. She's tired. Like,
Poor Shelly.
She's
like that.
tired.
She's
Like-
hyperventilating in the car on the ride
Right.
in. Like, oh,
She's
yeah,
like,
she's not
what did I
showing up
say
how
yes
she used
to?
to.
I didn't even want this job.
I didn't
told
want
you I didn't
any of
want it.
this. Right?
Like, what did you
And
do
it
to
is
me?
this thing where it's like that performance starts to become like leaders that really think that they are recognizing your capabilities by giving you more and more.
Oh,
There is a fine line between first of all, that is not recognition.
No,
It
it's
is
not.
Right.
it
That's
is
right.
really more of the value in that typically comes more from for the organization than it
Yes.
is for the person, especially when it's like a supplemental thing where there's a gap, there's a critical project, you put that person on it, especially if you don't redistribute the work.
Yeah.
Then that's not development or recognition. You're just leveraging that person. And look, sometimes that's just what you got to do, but you have to be mindful of that as leader. It is a trap because you are not setting that. Are you setting that person up for success if this is a pattern? And also, it's not equitable because usually you have one or two go-to people, you give them all the things, and then it's not balanced across the organization.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why people burn out. Like
Exactly.
this is what happened. And to your point, Amy, then or you have the other side of that where then they can no longer be a strong performer. Now you start to question whether or not they are a good employee when you don't take a step back and say, well, we put a lot on their plate. And
That's
it
right.
wasn't really
Yeah.
it wasn't really realistic that they would be able to excel by doing four other people's job at the same
Exactly.
time. But again, they're reliable and they want, and usually high potential are also very ambitious. So to say
Yes.
no, to your earlier point, Marcy, seems wrong.
Yeah.
Like
That's
now
right.
I'm going to be seen as like not the team player, or maybe I'm not as hungry as I used to be. No, even though they know deep down, I don't really want to do this.
I didn't want to do it in the
Yeah.
first place. And you
Yep.
know, it's like, and we're seeing employees' worth, and we're saying, let's give them more work. We think they're
Gift
awesome.
that keeps giving.
Let's
Keeps
just
giving.
keep giving them more work to show that we really value them. And it's like, when did we start that? And I remember having those conversations, you know, Amy, to your earlier point, when you have that conversation with someone and they're like, I didn't even really want to do that, but I was afraid to say that.
That's
I
right.
mean, how many times have we heard that where someone's like, I had someone say to me, well, Marcy, I don't have aspirations. I didn't have aspirations to be a senior director. I actually just wanted to get to a director and feel really good about that job because there was a job. I remember this woman, there was a job she really wanted. It was a director role, and it was a great role for her. And she was a fantastic people leader. And it was a pivotal role because she was a very strong strategist. She knew her stuff. She was a strong technical expert, and people loved working for her. And I remember being in the room and they were like, oh yeah, she's been in the job 3.5 years. Like, we really got to move her. We really got to. And I was like, screw it. I'm going to be that person. I was just like,
Why?
Good question. I'm like, why?
Why?
And they looked at me like I had 3 heads, you know, they're just like, yeah. I was like a few weeks in as their HR partner. It was a global job. I was like, I'm about to be hated, you know, but I was just like, why? And, you know, and they were like, well, and they went to, and I said, and I just stopped them and I said, I hear everything you're saying. I said, but nothing in what you're saying gives me a good understanding of how we're valuing this employee's contributions and what this employee wants to do. I also am not
That's right.
hearing the game plan after you move her, who you have in mind to put into that job. If you're saying the track record is strong. And then I just stopped and I remember thinking like this will either, you know, make or break me with them. But it was true. And
Yeah.
shame on us for making those assumptions. Like we have this idea in our head that in order to be successful in an organization, you need to climb a corporate ladder.
Right.
That corporate ladder better be linear, guys. You better be moving up and up
Right.
and up and up. I'm like, what? Who gave somebody that mentality and how did we all just sit here and accept that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I have to say, this conversation reminds me greatly of my husband's work journey. My husband works at Altria, and
Mhm.
so which is, you know, Altria is the parent company of Marlboro and all the, you know, those big kind of name brand products in the tobacco space. And he's worked there his entire career. He got a job there out of college at the University of Illinois. We'll talk about whether that's a real Big Ten college on another episode. The answer is no.
Oh man.
Yeah, he and I battle. It's
I was gonna
IU,
say.
U of I, whatever. Anyways, so he gets this job at Altria right out of school. And Aaron is the biggest creature of habit I've ever met in my entire life. Like, if you've seen the Truman Show, that's my husband's life. Like,
Oh, wow.
and he loves it like that. Like I admire so much him understanding kind of who he is and what he wants and what
Yes.
he's good at and what he likes and what he's willing to do and not willing to do. He has been in the same position for 20 years, 20 plus years. He's never had a desire to be the CEO of Altria or any kind of, you know, higher level leadership role there. He is the kind of guy that just wants to do a really good job at what he does, and he does, and he's recognized in multiple ways because of that. But whoever his leaders are, they're getting it right. Like
Yeah.
they've got it right. They've got an employee who's just doing all the right things every day. He's in a field sales role. These are roles that if you didn't have high integrity could easily be taken advantage of, you know,
Right.
like, you know, they've got a lot of systems in place. So they are monitoring that type of stuff. Right. But like it's a very autonomous job. You know, he's in the field with 130 clients in a territory every day, but he never ever is like, what's the next role for me?
Right.
Yeah.
We were built different because I was always over here.
Listen,
Like,
I was
what's
just
next?
thinking
What's
that.
next? Yeah.
And I love
Like,
that.
what's
And
next? How am I going to grow this career?
I
Right,
think that's great.
Honestly, he has taught me so much about just being comfortable in who you are and like not listening to everybody around you say, if you want to be in a worthwhile position, you've got to be the CEO, COO, whatever it is. And that's just not true. I mean, that's why
love
he's
that.
had a very successful career there in the same role he's been in since the beginning.
Good for him.
I love
Yeah.
that. And I think that it's a really good pivot, like, and talking about Aaron and his situation, because it's another side of this. So leadership is a big part of it, but there's also this personal thing. Because what I hear you saying in that is he's very clear about what he wants and is making sure that he stays in that lane. And so there's leadership, but then as a strong performer or high potential, or if you're both, you also have to make sure you're cute and like I think about Aaron. So I'm like the complete opposite. I have worked in like 6 industries. I was like, the fact that I stayed at one company for 11 years was mind blowing to me. And it's only because it was like 16 companies in one.
Right.
And so I was able to move. I was just like, in 11 years, I had like 12 jobs. So because I was in a rotation, I was like, this is my jam. And so like I'm on the complete other side of the spectrum
Yeah.
of that. But it was all fun and fast and furious. And I can't like if you had said that to me, and you probably did because I've known you for a long time about Aaron years ago, I'd have been like, oh my God, like how like I'll never do anything that like, I don't even understand how his brain works in that way because mine is on the other side of the spectrum. But in the last couple years, and I think I've said this in other episodes, I think we've all said this, I have different thoughts. I reflect back and I also look around as I lead conversations. There were things that I wish I would have done differently. I think at the time it was it felt right and it felt like just moving every 18 months to 2 years. All these different experiences, different industries, different assignments, like all the high profile things. Like I want all the things and I was
Right.
moving fast and furious. Here's what I learned. There is a point where you again, I'm probably in that boat, jack of all trades, master
Mm.
of none. I had to pick a lane and say, okay, here's where you're going to go. Because the moment that you don't get moved or promoted in 2 years, now it feels punitive. Like, now what did I do
Right.
wrong? Now you don't
Right.
like me. Now I'm disengaged because I feel like nobody is supporting me. I have no
Yeah.
sponsorship. My life is over. My career is coming to an end in 15 minutes. Like, this is where my head is going.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily true, but I needed to own some of that and say, number one, it's okay to say no. It's
Exactly.
becoming probably a little bit too easy for me, but it is a complete sentence. I've been telling people all the time, LaToya, we really love you to work on this project.
No.
Thank you for thinking of me. No.
No.
No. Can't do
No,
it.
period. Yeah.
No
Exactly.
period.
Yeah.
Because that goes back to my earlier point. Like, so if you are crushing it and you are doing really well and you're always, and I've known you for years, you've always been a high achiever. You're always somebody that's determined. You want to do a really great job. Like, I just, my mind, like, and maybe it's because I am too, like, as I'm getting older and maturing and look at the world differently, I can't imagine then going to you and being like, oh, LaToya, let's give you more. Let's give you
We
more
know you're
work,
bored.
girl, because
That
we
feels
think you're
good.
crushing it. So let's give you more.
She's
Meanwhile,
got
it's like,
nothing to
maybe
do. We
that's
should help her with that, you know?
yeah,
Right.
it's like,
She's so busy. You know what we're going to do? Give her more work
give her
done.
That's
more
right.
work. It's like, wait a minute, how is that a reward? How is that a reward? And
Yeah.
how is that? It's like, it's this passive aggressive way to say that we see your value. We see your value, so we're going to give you more work to do. And it's probably going to be work that other people in the organization are not doing well. So instead of
Yeah.
dealing with
Oh,
that
yeah, of
problem, let's
That's right.
actually give you more work to do because we value you. And it's
Yep.
true. It's just, again, it goes back to this is where, again, we have to call these behaviors out. We do have to be more vocal. We do have to challenge that dialogue in the room. We have to say the things because I feel personally that's how we've lost some really good people. I know I've seen it over the years where I had some really great people I worked alongside of and I supported when I was in HR, and they aren't there anymore because they literally said to me, Marci, I got burnt out, or I got tired of the same dialogue or the same narrative, or I got tired of feeling like I couldn't vocalize the fact that I didn't want to be, a CEO, or I didn't want to be the VP of this organization. And we lost some really good people because of that. And that's where it's like, that's the danger. It's like, what are we
That's
doing?
right. I've seen that too. I just saw a post on LinkedIn. I think it was yesterday or the day before. And I can't remember who posted this, but I saw him. He was explaining that a situation where there was a manager or leader, kind of mid-level leader, that was promoted to a new title with no comp increase. And when it first happened, the person was like, hey, it's okay. I'm climbing that ladder. I really wanted that title. I was already kind of doing the work, so it's okay. It was like kind of making excuses for themselves because they really, really wanted the title. Listen, if that to any leader that this is a situation you're in, please, please, please don't give the title without the appropriate compensation that matches the lift and the role responsibility, because you truly are just shooting yourself in the foot for what's going to come in 12 to 18 months, which is what happened in this situation. This person did end up leaving within 18 months, took a job for $74,000 more.
Wow.
Because they had the title and they
Yeah.
absolutely could. And they had 18 months of experience doing what they were already. So it's like, why, to me, that's just like I don't even understand it. I don't understand how you promote somebody by giving them a new title and not the right compensatory, or the right comp to go along with it, because you really are just basically putting out the red carpet all the way out the door.
Right to the next job. But you know what? That is
holding the door open.
Yeah, you literally are holding the door open, and it is the perfect setup, to your point, for people to start walking out the door. Now, look, we could argue that this person was strategic and knew exactly what that was going to lead to.
Absolutely.
Give me the money. That's okay. Because you know what? I'm about to market myself as
No
this level
kidding.
with these experience. And I've actually had to have that conversation with leaders like, oh, Marci, we'll just give this to Marci. And they're somebody who will jump in and take anything on. And they're like, I don't think we should give them another role on top of their other role without.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Yeah.
they're going to be all in. Like
they're
I
good.
already
They're gonna be
chatted with
fine.
them.
Just give her a super
Seems like
tiny
a
bump. She'll be
setup
fine.
for them to be poached by another company. No,
That's
no,
fine.
they're locked in. Nobody is that committed.
No,
It
they're
is
not.
the job. This is like and then of course that person is like giving their notice, and that leader is like, I am shocked. Are you though? Because
Exactly.
I'm not.
Really?
I'm
I
sure we
wasn't.
had this conversation.
You're really shocked.
So
You're shocked.
right, like they're always shocked. I'm always like
Shocked.
you save me with the I'm shocked because we go through this like once a quarter when something
Exactly.
happens. I already told you it's probably going to happen, and you looked at me like I was crazy, and now here we are. You're gonna pretend like you're like I'm supposed to not be
Exactly.
shocked with you. I'm not.
No.
It
But
cracked me
I
up.
think this is to your point on advocate. If that person didn't want that, this is where, as a fellow recovering high performer that's been in the trap,
Yep.
you have to make sure you advocate for yourself. You also have to be your own PR agent. No is a complete sentence.
That's right.
Focus on impact and not workload. Like it is, I tell people on my team all the time, and other people that tell me this, but they'll be like, I worked all the way through the weekend. That is unfortunate. That feels like we need to talk about like capacity. That is not a testament to performance. Like,
Right.
so like all of these things, like, and then you'll see those are though that's people get more burnt out because then they see other people that maybe they feel like I'm sure you've all had this. People say, Amy only works like 40 hours a week and she got promoted. Well, what did she actually deliver? Because it doesn't matter. Quite frankly, I support Amy being promoted. If she actually get this job done in 35 hours a week and you're doing it and you takes you 70, that actually might mean that maybe she's doing it in a different way because it's really about impact. But I think as the employee, like the leadership has a certain amount of accountability, and our good HR leaders in our world should be coaching them against all the things we talk about in terms of their responsibility. But as the person who's either the high performer or potential, you also have to own your own journey. What are you going to say no to? How are you going to really focus on the things that matter? Have your own career journey. What do you want to accomplish? And if 18 months doesn't feel right to you, say, you know what? I don't think that this is the right time for me to move. And here's why. Because I really want to get this, and this, that, take the Aaron mentality. I am doing really well in this, and I don't see any reason why I would move. Thank you for thinking of me, but I'm really clear about what I want to do, and I want to continue to focus on this.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's honestly really admirable too, and I think there's a professional maturity there that we don't have when we're first kind of entering the workforce. I mean, let's just be honest. But I think with time, you do kind of figure out like, okay, what do I really want? I've stepped in a couple things a couple times, and I don't want to step in it again. And I'm at a point in my life where I don't really want to take that on. So I like where you're going, LaToya. It's like, what kinds of advice would we give high performers? What would we say? How do you protect your peace and stay engaged? Because people don't say, I can't wait till I don't feel engaged here and want to move on. That's not the attitude people have. That creeps up on them through little micro experiences of just give it to Marci, just give it to Marci. You can only take so many of those before you start to say, man, is anybody paying attention to me over here and what's on my plate and valuing any of this? So what advice would we give?
And then Marci left. And then Marci
and then Marci left.
Marci left and did her own thing. Yeah, that's a true story.
She's like, yeah, you're actually telling my
true story. I was like,
true story.
Marci, what advice would you give from your personal experience?
Your absolute personal experience.
So it's like, wait a minute, this is real life. No, you're both so accurate in that, because I will share my personal story. I mean, I can't tell you, when I first started out, I was that person. I was like, yeah, I'll take on anything, guys. Like, I got this. And I was a high achiever. And that's just how I was raised. My dad, I watched my dad. My dad was like hardcore, and he was also in sales, and I would watch him, and he would say, you gotta work hard if you're gonna. And so that was my mentality. And I just said yes to everything. And when I say I was moved around a lot, like it was like, oh, good. And I just, in my mind, I was like, in order for me to feel fulfilled, in order for me to grow, expand, I have to say yes to these things because it's for my greater good. And I had my eye on the title and my eye on the compensation and my eye on all these things that I felt at the time would make me feel fulfilled. And I remember, I think the turning point for me was at times I remember having conversations with my people leaders and I said, "Can I just ask, like, how am I being represented in the rooms? Like, what do I need more of, or what?" And I had a people leader that literally said to me like, "Oh, well, I put you like over here, or I just assumed you would do this." And I went, "Oh shit." I was like
That's not
"This
what I
is."
wanted you to say.
Exactly. And and then two things, right? Because one, shame on the people leader, right? Because they weren't spending that time to really understand what I wanted. And then shame on me. Because what I then is I took ownership to say, I've allowed my narrative to be controlled outside of me. I've
Yeah.
allowed the fact that Marci will take on anything. Well, Marci will keep taking. And I remember I had a job and I got sick for 2 months because I wasn't taking care of myself. And I worked while I was sick, literally. And it was
Right.
a global job. And I not only had that job, I took on 2 extra projects on top of it because they asked me to. And there was never a conversation with me. Finally, I was like, and I'm watching a counterpart that I had in another country who had a subset of what I had, and we were the same level. And I was like, what am I doing? You know?
Yeah.
And
Right.
again,
Why?
in that moment, to your point, LaToya, this is where I had to say, I had to take ownership and say, I am letting them make assumptions about me that Marci will take on anything. And Marci's good at what she does. So let's give her more work. So in that moment, I remember saying, enough's enough because I'm not satisfied. And the things that I thought when I was younger were important to me, now that I'm getting older, are not. The title
Right.
doesn't mean everything. You can't put the title under your pillow at night and fall asleep and feel like, oh, everything's great because I have this title. Like, it doesn't bring you that level of comfort or joy that you think it's going to.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Your value, your worth, your purpose, your energy, the feelings you get when you do that job. And we think of Aaron, it's like the reason Aaron is loving life because he gets up every day and he's fueled by something that really brings him joy. And
Yep.
that was my turning point. And I finally said enough was enough. And I was one of those people. And I will tell you, when I left and I said, I'm going to do my own thing, I'm going to, the looks on people's faces, they were, one, shocked. They were like, what? And two, some people looked at me like I was nuts. What do you mean you're going to leave? Why would you leave
This
this?
amazing job in corporate America.
Yeah.
It's the
What are you
title. It's
gonna
the
do with your
comfort, got
life,
it
Marci?
all.
Exactly. Exactly, LaToya. What are you
Burn
going
the
to
fuck out,
do?
guys? Okay.
There is another lot that people could survive outside of corporate
Yeah,
America. I know it's
guys,
It's
shocking,
true.
but it's okay.
I'll be the first to tell you, you will survive outside. You
That's
actually
right.
will. There's a whole other world out there that, that you can have and do. And so, and that's why I love this conversation because it's so important. Like, nobody is in your shoes but you. You are the captain of your ship. You get to decide where that ship goes. And if you start to feel that pressure, if you start to feel like, wow, people are really dictating my narrative, speak up for yourself. The worst thing that can happen is that you pull a Marci and you say, I've actually outgrown and I want to expand. I can be grateful, which I am. I loved where I was. No harsh or anything feelings towards that. But I also can say, no, I'm done and I want to expand out there. That's the worst that can happen, is you say no to something, you shut
Yeah.
that door, and it leads you to something else that's
Yep.
probably
Yep.
more gratifying for you.
That's right.
Yep.
Yep.
And it is not, and if your choice is not to pull a Marci and exit stage love, which is
Yeah.
awesome,
Yep.
then you got to do the exact same, but the blueprint should still be the same. Speak up for yourself, set your boundaries, make sure that your voice is the one that is coming through. So in a perfect world, we have awesome people leaders who have development conversations all without being prompted, with all the workday notifications.
That's
and all
right.
the things. But if you don't, you have a responsibility to advocate for yourself. Hey, Marci, my now leader, well, notice we haven't talked in a while about like what I'm looking for. I would like to talk to you about that. Oh,
That's
okay.
right.
Like they're not going to be like, no, we can't talk about that because it's
Yeah.
not on my
We can't
calendar.
talk about
No,
your growth.
right. You have to say that if that's not happening. I tell people this all the time. Well, I have never had a development conversation with my leader. Well, you got to take you then make sure you make sure you make it happen. Tell them what's important to you, what's not important to you. Where do you see yourself? the question you asked, Marci, what is being said about me? That's a pro tip. Like that's next level development, owning your development. So if you have never done that, have that kind of conversation with your own leadership to say, I want to understand, how am I viewed in the organization when you guys are having talent conversations? How am I being represented? What can I do? I want to make sure you know what's important to me. And most leaders, again, we know this because otherwise we wouldn't be gainfully employed probably, but there are a lot of leaders that just don't even know how to have these conversations, but you can have it for yourself. And so you can guide them and make sure that they walk away with that information. I guarantee you that type of information is going to stick with them, and probably help them grow as a leader, because they're going to realize, I probably should have had this conversation. I should have prompted it myself, and I needed to have it with other people on my team because I don't know what I thought I knew.
Exactly.
That's right. I also think there's some value in all of these things you're mentioning. Both of you are such good advice for our high performers that I think need to take better and more control over their career. I say often, nobody cares about your career more than you, and nobody should care about your career more than you. So you have to be the one. That in that same vein, I would also say it's so important to like be very self-aware, which can be hard. So we all have a ceiling of where our expertise or our strength or our abilities might, cap out, so to speak. It doesn't mean you can't grow those muscles over time in other ways, but I think it's important for you to say, you know what, I'm just really not good at that one, this piece over here, and that's okay, because I'm like killing it over here in these areas that are really important to my job. But if I'm thinking about where I want to go and what I want to do, this area is maybe not so strong, whatever that area could be. And I think that if it's something that you really, really want, then there's ways to develop that muscle. And I hope that you've got people speaking into your life that say, Amy, that just might not be for you, and that you can say,
if
that
you
kind of
start going
stings,
that path.
But what'd you say, LaToya?
So we'll tell you if you start going down that path.
Thank you. Yeah, I know my girls will. But I think it's important that you've got those people saying, kind of helping you kind of right size your own thoughts about your abilities. And then you can say, you know what? You're right. I thought I wanted to be a great people leader, but then I realized it was so hard for me to have discussions with employees when they weren't performing. I just couldn't do it because I felt so bad. And so then I was hurting myself and I was hurting them and I'm hurting the company. Maybe this isn't for me, and that's okay. I mean, we need people to say that, because you are hurting yourself, especially if you're that person that was shoulder tapped to move into a role because you're such a good, so good at doing X. We want you to go manage the department X. And then you say yes, because even though you didn't want the job and it wasn't really your bag, you wanted to be a team player. And then all of a sudden you got into that role and you couldn't manage the team because you wanted to be their best friend and you just didn't want to tell them where they were missing the boat. And then performance conversations weren't happening. And then all of a sudden you want to fire them. And HR is like, tell me all about the performance conversations you've had. And you're like, I really didn't, because I just really like them and I didn't want to hurt their feelings.
Exactly.
Okay. Hello, major disconnect, right? So just
story.
you have to acknowledge,
Right.
you know what? Maybe
that's
I'm
a
not
true
the strongest people. No, seriously, that is an absolute true story, over and over everywhere I've ever worked, right? But I think that these are real life things. And so we have to say, look in the mirror and say, Amy, these are the things you're really great at, and these are the areas that are probably not for you,
Exactly.
And that's okay.
And it's so true. And if you are in HR, I would also encourage you, like, be that voice in the room with your leaders, please. Like, just pressure them a little bit more to make better decisions around talent. I mean, as a talent, you absolutely should be advocating for yourself. But as, HR, this is where, again, like, speaking of, the friend thing, I know we talked about this, HR is not your friend, but HR actually should be doing a service to the leader to have a difficult conversation with them to say,
that's
you
right.
know what? You actually are not crushing it in this department of people leadership because you don't know your team very well. And I've had that conversation. I know the two of you had, like, and this is where, again, it's like, well, but then take ownership. If you're not doing this well, you are potentially ruining many things in your organization, continuity, the turnover, not to mention the costly turnover that could come as a result of these behaviors where we're making assumptions about what does success look like? Success is a definition that many people can have that look differently. Your version
Very
of success
different.
could look very different than my version of success. And there
Mhm.
ultimately is nothing wrong with that, because if you are getting the best output in your organization and your organization is a well-oiled machine, does it honestly matter if Shelly wants to stay in that job for 5 years?
Yeah.
Because I
Right.
don't see
She's
an
doing a
issue
great
with
job.
right.
Let her live, you know?
Let her
And I
live.
I
think
yeah.
I was just gonna say, I feel like where you're kind of heading, Marcy, is like the perfect setup to our next episode where we talk
Mhm.
about like
Yes.
it's not, these things are not coming without a cost.
Exactly.
Burnout has a cost. The
Yep.
things that you do, that turnover and all that. And sometimes it's not as simple as Shelly just is like burnt out and she just keeps doing the work and keeps smiling. Or quite frankly, as simple as pulling a Marcy. That's officially a term now where you're just
I
like,
love it.
I'm good. I'm just gonna go ahead and do my own thing.
Yeah,
There is a lot, that's a spectrum.
it
There's
is.
a lot in the
Yeah.
middle, and so you've got all these new things, revenge quitting. What residual damage is
Mm.
happening for the burnt people that are burnt out, the people that are overworked, the people that are getting off scot-free, all the stuff in the middle, and how that impacts the organization. And so it's a lot of really cool Gen Z workforce terms that have come
Yep.
out, like quiet quitting, revenge quitters,
Yes.
and
Revenge quitting.
ghosting
Yeah.
in the corporate world, ghosting. Like, what does that look like? Which is what we
Oh,
wanna
man.
talk more about. But I think that all
Yep.
of this is like, what happens? What really is the cost when all of these things don't play out? Like, we're giving you the right way to do it, but there's another side of this, and
There
it's
is.
more than just losing some good talent, which is bad enough, but there's more things that you could be causing as a leader in your
That's right.
organization if you don't get ahead of this.
It's very spot on. I love,
Yep.
first of all, some of the Gen Z terms crack me up, but my favorite, I don't know why every time I hear revenge quitting, I giggle because I'm just like, revenge.
There goes Marcy with her elevator voice
It's
again.
just
I
really
love it. It has to come in.
Revenge
It has
quitting.
to happen.
and then I don't know, I giggle every time I hear about it because it's like, do you announce it? Like, do you actually say this is a revenge quit? Right? But I know we're gonna
We'll talk about it. We're gonna unpack
I was gonna say.
we'll do a scene from a possible revenge quitting scenario.
I
How
would
does
love
that
that.
really happen?
I
That's
would
gonna
love
be
that. Yeah,
awesome.
because I mean, listen, you know me, I'm over here applauding it because at the end of the day, like I just truly feel like everybody deserves to feel good about what they do in life, and you should feel energized
Yep.
about it. It shouldn't drain you, shouldn't ruin your life. It shouldn't be hyperventilating on a car ride in, knowing that you really genuinely are just not happy anymore. So at the end of the day, I think these conversations are so vital because the more we have them and the more we can inspire others to start driving them, that's where the change comes. Where, guess what, guys? We're moving into a new world where work is not everything. I
That's
know
right.
Imagine
that's
that.
a wild concept for people to accept,
Wild.
but it's like, hey, corporate America, not everybody wants to do this. So yeah, we'll have some fun talking about that. I can't wait to talk about revenge quitting.
Okay,
I can't
so
wait.
next episode we'll talk about revenge quitting. Before then, dig in. There's
Yep.
some interesting stories. We'll figure out how to paint the picture as best, but the rise of the revenge. I feel like it's going to be like the Return of the Planet of the Apes. So I don't know, something.
I love that
We're gonna make
movie.
this very, very dramatic, as
It's gonna be
revenge
great.
quitting can be. As we will talk about
We're
it,
gonna talk
it
about
could be a little more dramatic than you expect. So, stick with us. Next episode, we'll take this a step further and talk about the
Yep.
rise of the revenge quitters, and the saga that goes along with that.
Yes,
Can't
can't wait. Yes, can't wait. Thanks for joining us, everybody. See you
Thanks,
soon.
everyone.
Thanks for listening to HR Misfits, where people leadership gets real. If this conversation resonated with you, follow the show and subscribe wherever you watch or listen. And if you're a leader navigating complex, high stakes people decisions, we're also building the HR Misfits Collective, a place for real counsel, not HR theater. You can find us online at www.thehrmisfits.com.